Why? Why, Nakaba? Why do you have to make me sympathize for Chion? Why? Why couldn't you leave him to be a despicable character for at least 50 more chapters? Why drop this backstory now? Oh man, why? It was such a good backstory too. Oh man. Alright, anyway, based off of that 20-second or so rant, this was not a chapter, but instead a special bonus chapter that Nakaba released before chapter 108, which is going to come out next week. I'm not sure why he chose to put this chapter in now, but I am both glad he did and not so glad he did. I'm glad he did it because we got to know why Chion is the way he is, and it honestly makes you understand the guy more. Even though I still despise him, I can honestly fully understand how he turned out the way he did. And it's not so good because it's literally in an arc where he is not one of the main focuses. If it happened in the Wallneck arc, or even in a future arc where the Tristan platoon or Chion in particular had a real major focus, I wouldn't have minded it in it, and it would make like a potential the next season of the anime, when the anime does come out, if they adapt it, it'd fit a lot better. But you never know, they could try and add it in at some point. But yeah, with all that out of the way, let's hit the intro and get right into the chapter. So, this chapter titled The Perils of Chion, we literally get how Chion not only learned how to use spirit magic, we also see all the avatars of all the spirits in this nice cover image, but we find out how he ended up the way he was, and it is incredibly messed up that what happened to Chion, and I cannot believe Nakaba went this route with a side character, but it shows that he's adding more depth to side characters in particular, since Seven Deadly Sins only really focused on the main sins and not so much on the side cast. It's 13 years ago in the past, when Chion was only 3, and the narration states, there's a lot of narration in this part, because it is like 11 to 12 pages, states that Chion was, by his very nature, had the same intelligence and diligence as Gilthunder, and the tender heart and kindness of Margaret, his mother. And so, at the age of 3, this was the point in his life where his personality was starting to take shape. But in that instance, he is in bed, and one day, in Leonis, it's realized that Chion was kidnapped. And he wakes up to a large lady greeting him, stating that he was a sleepyhead. She then says that she is gonna be his new mother starting today. And Chion was taken by Vivian. Remember Vivian? The character that served no real purpose except for being a major simp for Gilthunder, who she was like, I don't know, a decade older than at the time, in main story and when he was a kid? Remember that? Well, she's back, and this time she kidnapped Gilthunder's son. For the main reason, because she wants to be kind of a roleplay type thing. Be Chion's mother, because she always wanted to be Gilthunder's wife. I don't think it's any stretch of the imagination that no one liked Vivian in the Seven Deadly Sins. Now Nak was like, you thought you guys didn't like her now. Wait till you see what I do with this side chapter. Also, let's just say this. She looks like the villain from The Little Mermaid with her design. I'm not going to be sugarcoating it here. He really wanted us to see what happened to Vivian after all these years. So, yeah. But yeah, this is honestly, aside from wanting to basically roleplay being the mother of Gilthunder's child, she also did this as a way of revenge for Gilthunder not wanting to be with her. Moving along, Chion in that instance, when he saw Vivian, realized, yeah, something is wrong here, but there is no way he's going to get out of the situation. But in that age, since he was actually very smart for his age, he realized he had to bide his time because there was no way he would be able to escape her or her magic, especially with how obsessive that she was, and he had to wait for an opening. We get one panel showing Meliodas, Hauser, and Gilthunder rousing all the Holy Knights and trying to find Chion, and 5 years passed. Chion was with Vivian in basically an old stone hut inside a giant chasm for 5 whole years. that would seriously make someone's mental state very, very bad, especially considering that there's always the possibility that he would get Stockholm Syndrome and literally start to sympathize with Vivian and see himself as her child. Which, yeah, that is actually a thing that happens in real world. I'm not even going to touch on that. But, yeah, so we cut back to Chion after 5 years of him basically being Vivian's prisoner. He goes out and grabs some herbs as he begins to siphon around the area, see what's going on. As he's aged, he's gotten smarter, and he hasn't forgotten the fact that he's Gil Thunder's son, and Vivian's not his real mother, so he needs to get out of there. So he looks over the walls. He can't climb them. Not to mention that the door made of oak in that little hut is very heavy, and it shuts very tight. He walks into Vivian as she is doing some sort of potion, and turns out she is cursing people. This is a nice bit of comedy in this very dark situation, as she reveals certain things we found out in the main series of Fortnite's The Apocalypse and in bonus chapters that we've seen in like the main volumes of Fortnite's The Apocalypse. So remember when she was obsessed with Dreyfus at the end of Seven Deadly Sins and moved on from Gil Thunder, we thought, we're like, okay, this is kind of funny, she's young for Dreyfus, but hey, at least she's not going after Gil anymore. We kind of figured Dreyfus did not go for that. He loved his late wife, and so she wanted to take revenge on him, and so she is the one responsible for Dreyfus's back pains. What we thought when we first met Dreyfus was just his old age, turns out Vivian was the one cursing him with back problems. I'm not kidding you. And hell, she even talks about Hendrickson and how he was possessed or charmed by Fraudrin to basically want to overthrow the kingdom, bring back the Demon Clan, and had Vivian help him. She basically wanted revenge on him and says, I'll hex him so that no woman will want him, so that he will be shunned for the rest of his life. And this is a gag that was literally in a side chapter that I made a short about like months ago, where Nazians talked to Hendrickson about love advice, and Hendrickson was like, no woman has ever talked to me. They say I'm very bad with women. And I just thought that was just a running gag. No, turns out Vivian literally cursed him so that he'd have no luck for women. But anyway, Vivian then says that Chion's her number one, and Chion, in that blank state that he tends to have constantly now, says, I'm so glad to hear that. As Vivian just chuckles in the background like, curse you, blah blah blah, as Chion gives a nice big maniacal smirk, being like, you're a wily old fool. So Chion lived alone with her for so long that eventually he became very spiteful, causing him to think incredibly negatively of others, and this does kind of make sense with everything that's happened with his character up until this point. One night he goes out to get something for Vivian in the dark, his candle falls, and he begins to panic, being like, don't go out, and then all of a sudden the flame turns into one of his spirits, Salamander. As he wonders what's going on, Vivian walks in and is like, wait, Salamander, did you do this, Chion? And apparently it is a spirit, and Vivian gets all giddy, stating like, you have the talent for the spirit arts. And it's revealed that the two of them polished Chion's spirit magic for about another year, where he was able to eventually get Salamander, Sylph, and the gnome. And we haven't got anything from the water spirit that we saw in the opening cover page, but I assume we got that over later years. Then another night after that year of training, Chion gets out of bed and he makes his move, commanding Sylph to play its role, and it begins to siphon off the atmosphere around Vivian as she begins to choke and is unable to breathe. As Chion just smiles with a void look in his eyes, saying like, enjoy a taste of the pain I felt for the past 6 years. I'm heading out, alright? As he then summons Salamander to completely burn and destroy the front door, he walks out, gets the gnome to create a pillar of earth to get him to the top of that hole, and he makes it out, challenging the world, shouting out saying, you see that, old lady? Finally, I've done it. As two voices from below the hill say, who's having a party up there? You're gonna fall if you go up that high. Chion then goes down the mountain, slides down, as he then steps up in front of the two, as this is his first meeting, Jade and Isolde, the two that would soon become his two best friends, along with Tristan. And while they're saying like, hey, you lost, kid? Are you alone? Where's your mom and dad? Asks Chion with no real expression, as this is before he actually became friends with them, just states, I'm not like you lot. I'm the son of Gilthunder, Holy Knight of Leonis, and Margaret, its first princess. And this, I presume, is how Chion makes it back to Leonis through Jade and Isolde, as the narration ends off the chapter with, so the three of them met when Chion was 9. He later returned to the kingdom of Leonis, living peacefully with his parents. But then a few more years later, he was kidnapped by Vivian again, and when Tristan rescued him, it led to his obsession over the prince. But that's a story for another time. Ending the special chapter. So, I'm going to go off on a limb and say this. This is probably an incredibly fucked up chapter for a shonen manga to have. And even though this isn't a full-on chapter, let's just be honest. I never liked Chion. I don't really like Chion. But my god, did this really make me like his character more. As a person, I don't like him, but I fully understand. I fully understand how he became the way he is thanks to this short little flashback mini chapter. Vivian of all people, it makes so much more sense now. His obsession with Tristan, he is somewhat like Vivian's, except not more like the simping kind of her just wanting to kill everyone around, but him just being obsessed and protective of Tristan and wanting no one to talk bad about him. Then again, he did try to kill Gawain at one point, and it wasn't Gawain, but anyway, it makes sense for his personality being the way it is now, and apparently got kidnapped again. Chion, I know you were only 9 years old, but when you're trying to escape from someone like Vivian, always make sure that they cannot follow you, or just finish the job. Because let's be honest, I don't think anybody wants to see Vivian ever again. But yeah, that was a special chapter. It was a good chapter. I liked it. Did it make up for interfering in the main story of Four Knights right now? Like I said at the beginning of this video, I honestly think that this should have been in an arc where Chion was one of the major focuses. If it was in Walneck, then yeah, it would make sense because it'd be his first meeting with Jade. Jade dies in that arc, and it makes sense why he's so pissed off, angry, and sullen about it. And then later down the road, since he is kidnapped again and Tristan saves him, it would make sense to have that in a later arc. So this probably isn't gonna be the last time we'll see of Chion's backstory. But who knows? Either way, I'm glad we got this, but I really do think it should have come at a better time and not interfere with the main story. But still, I enjoyed it. I liked that we got to see Chion's origins, how he discovered that he had the art for spirit magic, how he trained with Vivian, how Vivian basically shaped him into the, well, let's just say the prick that he is due to all of the negative ways that it has affected him in his formative years. But yeah, that was the chapter. I enjoyed it. What did you guys think of this chapter? Leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments section down below. How do you feel the next confrontation with Vivian is going to be in the next flashback? Do you think that in the next flashback it'll be confirmed that she is imprisoned or dead? And how do you feel about just this being how Chion became the way he is? Leave your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe, hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. It really does help, and it shows you guys love the content I make on this channel. And I can't wait for next week with the next chapter. But if you want a refresher, here's a link to the previous chapter reviews and Four Knights videos I've made so far. So go check those out if you want a refresher, or just to see some other content I made for Four Knights and 7 Deadly Sins. But with all that out of the way, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you all have an awesome day.